It's pretty subtle, so you're forgiven if you missed it. Army of the Dead's time loop. Every clue Snyder reveals and the theory explained. And while we're at it, what could be Army of the Dead 2's version of the zombie tiger? When can we expect the sequel to be released, and what will it be about? You'll find out all about it in this video. Let's get started. First up, Army of the Dead's time loop. Every clue you missed. Just in case you missed it, Army of the Dead didn't just have zombies, but also robots, aliens, dimensional portals, and an actual time loop theory. The movie contains some major clues to the possibility of time travel or the potential of a time loop, and director Zack Snyder has even been encouraging some speculation about his project. The time loop concept appears to be a throwaway line by Vanderroel, portrayed by Amari Hardwick, but upon further inspection there seems to be more hints that confirm it. The first time loop tease seems to be a very subtle reference in the very first scene, where Elvis' Suspicious Minds is playing, and the lyrics seem to suggest the existence of a time loop. Moreover, Tanaka's mission briefing montage may very well have been an alternate reality, instead of just the visualization of the ideal version of the heist. While that doesn't necessarily point to a time loop, it does bring the time loop idea back to mind. And then there's the moment when the time has arrived at Bly Tanaka's casino, and they find a roulette table with another set of blueprints to the vault, and later the dead bodies of several members of another team. While the movie lingers long enough on the moment to give it weight, it doesn't seem like the other team has any other significance, unless it's a nod towards a time loop. What do you think? Next, Army of the Dead. What does Zack Snyder have to say about the time loop theories? With more than enough explicit and subtle references towards the possibility of a time loop in both Army of the Dead and Army of Thieves to make any fan go crazy with the theories, Zack Snyder seems to enjoy fanning the flames of the fan theories by mentioning the time loop a few times during interviews. Sadly, Snyder also knows how to remain cryptic, only admitting that though he won't say that the theories he's hearing are 100% true, as in the same ways they're not, but there is some meat to it. An example would be the group sitting at the table. I mean, it's pretty subtle, but they're also on the team as well. They go farther every time. Like, is this the time they made it all the way to the money? Snyder teased in an interview. But on the other hand, the time loop concept doesn't necessarily have to be literal in order for it to have meaning in the movie. For example, Vanderroel's speculation about being caught in a loop of fighting and dying, which has a very thematic heavy resonance as a metaphor, just like Dieter's dream of his death. Here's to hoping that we'll get some answers in the upcoming sequel, which has been officially named Army of the Dead, Planet of the Dead, or else in the animated prequel series, Army of the Dead, Lost Vegas. Following Army of the Dead, Vanderroel actually explains the time loop theory in front of the vault. There are a few things that have to be mentioned about the dead team members found at the roulette table and outside the vault. While the other team that the group found at the roulette table was fairly innocuous, the same can't be said about the team found outside the vault. The resemblance they bear to the members of Lost Vengeance is truly uncanny. It should be specially pointed out that this includes a skeleton that resembles Peter's. But if you remember, Peters is never actually in the vault. But during Tanaka's mission briefing montage, she was shown entering the vault. Needless to say that this was the scene that initially called the time loop theories to life. Vanderroel says it himself.
Look at him. It's us. It could be us in another timeline. And we're caught in some infinite loop of fighting and dying, fighting and dying, fighting and dying.
It doesn't get more specific than that, does it? Do you need more proof that the time loop theory holds water? Don't go anywhere just yet. We've got more in store for you. Next up, what do you think could be Army of the Dead 2's version of the zombie tiger? And when can we expect the sequel to be released? What can we tell about the plot for Army of the Dead, Planet of the Dead? Find out next in this video. Let's continue. What do you think could be Army of the Dead 2's version of the zombie tiger? The first zoological zombie that we were introduced to in Army of the Dead franchise was a tiger, which implies that the possibilities for what the next one could be are vast. We know that Zeus was created in Area 51. This suggests that the alpha zombies were intended as weapons from the very beginning. And the same obviously goes for apex predators like tigers. And if more zombie animals were created in Area 51, it's very likely there will be more zombie animals of the same nature. Think bears, cheetahs, lions, wolves, and all kinds of scary animals. Moreover, the existence of Zeus also implies a whole string of events. Before human trials would have taken place, there must have been experimentation on animals that are closely connected to humans, or even share some biological similarities. This opens up the distinct possibility that Area 51 scientists actually started their experiments on different kinds of primates, leading up to the creation of Zeus as the first alpha zombie. But that also means that Area 51 might very well be filled with orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and all sorts of other primates that were transformed in the earlier phases of Area 51's experiments. And then there's the possibility that the US government decided to turn their alien captives into zombies as well. But who knows? What do you think? Next up, Army of the Dead 2. When could it be released? Zack Snyder kickstarted a brand new undead franchise with the release of his 2021 zombie movie, Army of the Dead. The movie effortlessly took Netflix by storm, and it's already spawned itself a prequel movie, Army of Thieves, as well. And with Army of the Dead, Planet of the Dead officially in the summer of 2021, we've all been on the edge of our seats waiting for any news to be released about when we can expect to lay our eyes upon the highly anticipated sequel. It was reported by The Hollywood Reporter that Zack Snyder would start on Army of the Dead 2 as soon as he'd wrap on his other upcoming Netflix movie, Rebel Moon. After that, Snyder is promised to spend more time in the Armyverse. They started shooting for Rebel Moon in April of 2022, and in keeping in mind the future post-production time for that project, it seems like production of Army of the Dead 2 is very unlikely to start any time before 2023, as there is almost no release date for Rebel Moon yet either. It's hard to predict. We're all hoping that Army of the Dead, Planet of the Dead will be released at the end of 2023, but it's more likely to sneak into the beginning of 2024. What would your best bet be for the release of Army of the Dead 2? And last but not least, what will the plot of Army of the Dead 2 be about? Sadly, there's no official synopsis for the upcoming Army of the Dead sequel, but the ending of the first movie did have some very strong suggestions that make imagining where the story is going a whole lot easier. The Armyverse is a world where Las Vegas has been run over by zombies, and humans are stuck in quarantine camps. The end of the movie saw many characters meet their death, but the most interesting scene was the final shot, where Vandero is boarding a plane to Mexico City after surviving the overall heist, and it's revealed that he has been bitten by a zombie on his arm. Army of the Dead 2 will most likely show the fallout of Vandero's final revelation and see the world reeling from an unquarantined outbreak, which sounds like really bad news. And then there are some of the other lingering questions that have been left wide open, like where did Zeus actually come from? And are there more of him? Did the government stop the outbreak? What is Tanaka going to do now? Are there more people like Vandero infected and roaming around America? And did Matthias Schweihhofer's Ludwig Dieter really die, even though we don't see him die on camera? Zack Snyder has already teased that there's a chance that he may have survived. What do you think? And that's all we've got for now. Do you believe in the time loop theory of Army of the Dead? Are there any other fan theories that you found interesting? Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.